Thank you.
The gentleman from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Bernanke, for being here. You know, during the previous hearings, I've asked you about the status of the Fed's work with HUD on harmonizing RESPA and TILA efforts. So I think it's particularly important to ensure that the consumers have simplified information disclosures. And how are things going with that?
No, we agree with you. We agree with you 100% on that, and we've been trying to work this out for some time. We have recently, as you may know, released some new rules on mortgage disclosures, yield spread premiums, and some of these related issues which bear on the documents that consumers sign when they take out a mortgage. And we are in conversations now with HUD, and I think there's a lot of goodwill on both sides to try to come to some agreement that will allow us to eliminate duplication and to create a more consistent set of rules between the two institutions. So we are trying. We're in conversations. It's taken a long time because the commitment has waxed and waned, but we are working very hard to do that and hope to have some results.
Do you think that you will finalize the regulations before RESPA takes effect?
We will try to do so. Okay. I can't promise.
Under the proposed legislation, the CFPA is given authority to write RESPA and TILA rules. Should you, if you finalize the rules, if this new agency were to come into effect, would I worry then that the new agency would probably start all over again and look at those rules?
Well, that would be up to the new agency. If they thought that the rules that were in existence were not adequate for some reason, they would have obviously the right to do that. If I were running in this new agency, I would try to address what I perceived as the biggest gaps and not revisit a lot of old rulemakings. But that would be up to that person.
Thank you. Then, if Congress overreacts to this crisis and overregulates, for example, with the derivatives regulation requiring all customized and standardized transactions to be conducted on an exchange, could U.S. business and jobs move overseas?
Well, I think in general it's very important to not to overreact, but to create maybe not more regulation, but smarter regulation is the way I've put it before. On the case you're talking about, I think there's a case from both market efficiency and from systemic safety to use clearinghouses or central counterparties for standardized contracts, but at the same time I think there's also scope for leaving a part of the industry in a more bilateral or non-customized basis. I think there's a good economic reason for that, and so an appropriate balance between those two things would be welcome.
I hope we don't overreact as we have in some other cases. And just one other issue that I've heard some concerns about, and that is with the CFPA, that there's fear that every company really will be included under that. And I know you talk about the statutory authority that you have for dealing with the issue, but every company that has any financial transaction at all, even a plumber or a baker or whatever, would be under this regulation. Do you believe that could happen, or would there have to be legislation to make sure, you know, what is actually defined?
I think the legislation would define that. I understand the chairman has dropped that from his current version of the bill, but certainly the Federal Reserve does not have that kind of authority, so it would have to be specifically granted to the new agency.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.